Good evening, RMP aspirants. Mr. Arga and Mr. Nadeem with me, and we are going to do the questions for risk response. Yes, Arga, bhai, question number one for you.
A team member has identified risk and the project manager decides to take no action. This is an example of risk exploitation, risk mitigation, risk avoidance, and risk acceptance. So project manager decides to take no action.
Right.
So if it is no action, then I think he is avoiding the risk,
Risk.
right?
Yes, Nadeem bhai.
No, sir. Risk acceptance, sir.
And what is risk
He's
avoidance?
pass.
What is risk avoidance?
Uh,
Any example
he
of
is avoiding
Mm.
risk avoidance. He is uh, removing the risk main
removing the
the
activity, removing the work package?
activities which are causing risk.
Yes, and changing the plan,
Changing the
adding
plan.
the
Yes, sir.
components, removing the components. These can be the
Yes,
risk
sir.
avoidance. And acceptance is of two types. What are these types and what is the difference?
Active acceptance and passive acceptance.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the difference?
It is like passive acceptance. It is like just means uh, active acceptance with a is like putting a contingency reserve for the risk.
Risk response. And taking no action.
Yes,
No
sir.
response activities
No
are
action.
finalized. And passive acceptance.
It is like just accepting the risk, and once it is near once it is occurs, we will take action according to the risk.
No, in passive acceptance, we are not preparing any response activities.
Yes, sir.
And also, we are not keeping any contingency reserve. This is the difference between
Yes,
active
sir.
and passive. In active, contingency reserve is kept and no action, no response activities are planned. In passive, no response activities, no contingency reserves are kept. This is the difference. And if generally talking about the acceptance, it means no action, no response activities are developed. Right?
Yes.
Clear, Arga bhai?
Yes. Okay. So so avoiding, so if the avoiding means what? Like, uh,
Removing the work package, removing the
yeah, like,
activity,
yes,
changing the
like,
plan.
yeah, like making the impact zero.
Yes,
That
exactly.
is what if I have understood, right?
Yes,
Because if there is a probability, if there is an impact, if I'm making the impact zero, then
yeah,
I am trying to avoid the risk,
yeah.
right?
Or can make the probability zero even.
Yeah, or
Completely.
either way, it works either way, either making the probability zero or they have impact zero,
Right,
right?
right.
If the question states that he's trying to make the impact of probability zero, then it will come under avoidance, right?
Avoidance. Yes, true.
Okay. To obtain agreement on project risk response strategies by the stakeholders, the risk response strategy should be appropriate project model,
Mm.
unbiased data, and
Okay.
scale to the project and addressing threats and opportunities,
Mm.
timely, cost-effective, agreed upon, and accepted. This seems to be more appropriate, right? The strategies
Right.
should be should be cost-effective, should be timely, and should be agreed upon. Let us see the next option: scheduled, budgeted, and easy for project stakeholders to understand. I think option C is more appropriate for me.
Right. Okay. Individually, if you see about the project modeling is not done in the plan risk response. It is done in quantitative analysis. Unbiased data accuracy we checked in when we are doing analysis, qualitative or quantitative. Iterative is for all those processes. Again, second option, iterative is for all. Scale to the project. Scaling we do, alteration, scaling, and that is tailoring. This is done in when we are developing the risk management plan. Addressing threats and opportunities, that's right. For that for plan response, both we address them. Timely, cost effective, agreed upon, and accepted. These are the success factors of plan risk response. Then scheduled, budgeted, easy for project stakeholders to understand. Scheduled, budgeted, I think their budget is kept when we are developing the risk management plan. and schedule is also kept at that time. And easy for project stakeholders to understand, that is not the characteristic or not the success factor when we are developing the response. It's not necessary they are easy to understand, but it is necessary they should be timely, they should be cost effective, they should be agreed by the stakeholders, and they should be accepted. Clear?
Yeah.
Question number 3.
What are the critical success factors for the planned risk response process? Okay. Define roles and responsibilities, address threats and opportunities, risk probability and impact assessment, and address iteration of risk and responses. Identify appropriate project model, define roles and responsibilities, address the threats and opportunities, and address iteration of risk and responses. Define roles and responsibilities, address threats and opportunities, address iterations of risk and responses, and specifying the timing of responses. Okay. Define roles and responsibilities, addressing the threats and opportunities, categorizing risk causes, and address interaction of risk and responses. Okay. So risk probability and impact assessment, the first option, I think it is done in the analysis process, right, sir?
Right, correct.
So for this reason, I'm eliminating this option. Okay.
Good.
Identifying the appropriate project model. I think that is and defining the roles and responsibilities. Okay. So the project modeling, as we have just discussed, it is also done in the analysis process, right? The modeling.
Yes.
So this is defining the roles and responsibilities, yes. Addressing the threats and opportunities, yes. Addressing interactions of risk and responses, yes. And specifying timing of responses. Okay, this is a good option. The last option, it is saying that, okay, it is saying categorizing the risk causes. So I believe out of C and D, so C is more appropriate for me, sir.
That's right. Categories of risk causes. Categories are developed actually when we are planning the risk, developing the risk management plan. Yes. Question number 4.
A project manager decides to mitigate risk on the risk register. Okay, from which of the following sources should the funds be drawn to cover the risk mitigation? Management reserve, contingency management, project charter contingency. So it will be the contingency reserve only. No, sir. This is
Not
straightforward, right?
contingency management. Please remember,
No.
not contingency
Right.
management.
Yes. Contingency reserve.
And the management reserve, where we utilize them.
Management reserve is for unknown. No, sir. It is at an it is because if it is already identified, then it is not an unknown. No, it is already provision. That amount is already identified. Correct?
Correct. And also the issues for the problems to resolve them, we use the management reserve. And mostly management reserve is 5 to 6%. That is under the custody of the sponsor, and it is not revealed to the project manager even.
Yes. Correct. It is not at the authority of the project manager to use the management.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes,
And
true.
it is an activity level, and as it is at a project level also. The management reserve is mostly used at a project level.
Overall
Right.
level, yes, and the percentage of the total budget.
Percentage project, not at the activity level in a project.
True.
Where we need to use the contingency reserve. Okay, you have identified a risk that may cause safety concerns for the workers completing the task. You have decided to hire a subcontractor to complete this work because the risk is too great to accept internally. What risk response is this? So whenever I'm hiring a subcontractor, the fundamental is that I'm transferring the risk, right, sir?
Yeah,
so for me, this is a transfer.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, during risk monitoring, the project team identified new risks and start creating risk responses for this newly identified risk. Okay, to efficiently manage the risk responses, what should the project team do? Update the risk management plan, determine the root cause, classify the risk impacts based on the severity, identify the risk owners. Or to effectively manage the responses, what should the project manager do? Okay, update the risk management plan. No, this is not the correct option, right?
Right.
So determining the root cause to efficiently manage the responses. It is saying responses.
Mhm.
So because now they have already, because if I go to the root cause, the,
Mhm.
the question is emphasizing how to manage the responses. So
Yeah.
meaning
Mhm.
that they have already agreed on the response plan. So the root cause is already known. If the root cause is known, then only they will understand, they will implement, they will agree on the response plan. No, now the question is asking how to manage those response plans.
Yes.
Classify the risk impacts based on severity. Identify the risk owners. No, identifying the risk owners is already done. Then
Mhm.
only they have. So I'm really C is the correct answer for me. Or what?
Which one?
C.
Yes, if you see the question situation, they have identified the response and started creating responses. The analysis they have not done in between. So classifying
Yes.
risk based on severity, that is classification, categorization, prioritization. These are all outcomes of the assessment, qualitative and quantitative. So they should classify the risk. They should
So
prioritize the risk based on their severity.
after identification, the next step is to this one, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. You are a risk manager for a big construction project. You and the project team successfully identified and analyzed risk. As a part of the risk response process, what is the purpose of mitigating negative risk? To reduce the probability of risk occurrence and reduce the impact, transfer the probability of risk occurrence to a third party, and reduce the impact, to increase the probability of risk occurrence and reduce the impact, to accept the probability of, I think it is the purpose is to reduce both probability and impact, right, sir?
Correct,
So
correct.
option A,
So option A.
because I'm mitigating, no?
Yes, in mitigation, both reduced.
Yeah, but okay. If if the project manager wants to review the risk response effectiveness from past projects, okay, from past projects, from which of the following will you find this? Lessons learned and enterprise environmental factors, lessons learned and risk audit, lesson learned and probability and impact. No. It is like risk audit and lesson learned.
Right.
Because it is asking, right?
Right.
Okay. A technique for planned risk responses can provide a means of identifying symptoms for use as a trigger conditions for contingent responses. I didn't get this question. A technique for planned risk response can provide a means for identifying symptoms for using as a trigger conditions for contingency response. Is it making sense, this question? I think so.
Yes, yes. He is asking you the tool or technique which is used to identify the symptoms, which symptoms can be used as warning sign or trigger conditions for implementing the contingent responses.
Okay. So contingency reserve estimation, no way. Probability impact matrix, no, because it is used, okay, because to identifying the symptoms, right?
Yes.
So nominal, no, like root cause can be the good option
Yes,
out
root
of this.
cause is the
Because
because
I'm
based on the
identifying
cause,
the,
we can see that what can be the triggers,
yes,
what are the
yes, yes,
warning signs or symptoms to implement the response.
yes. A project risk manager successfully developed the risk management plan and the risk register. Furthermore, the risk analysis and the risk response planning are finalized to deal with the high and the medium priority risk. How the risk manager and the team members will deal with the remaining low priority risk. So watch list, because if it is a remaining, so it goes, I think straight away I can see now.
That's right.
I can go with the option of what list.
Good.
If the question. After determining the agreed upon risk response for a specific risk, what is the next step? Evaluate the project related implications and update the risk response to the project. Communicate to the stakeholders, document the predicted exposure, add the risk response to the project management plan, and document the predictive exposure, right?
Right.
So after determining the agreed upon risk response, okay, for a specific risk, what is the next step? Evaluate the project related implicated and update them. No. It is asking for a specific risk only, right?
Right.
And not communicate to the stakeholders. add the risk response to the project management plan. Document the predicted exposure is okay. I think we need to
Okay.
document
And the risk
exposure.
response activities where we
No, it's project management plan
PM.
only.
Yes.
Correct. So I think option D is more appropriate in this
Yes,
sense.
both activities we do. If we have agreed upon on the risk response activities, then we will merge them into the project management plan. And also
Yes.
we have to see what is the predicted exposure. After we implement the response, what will be the future outcome that we have to write also.
Yes, because let us say this response plan will impact like the which domain. It can impact the quality domain or the planning domain or the cost or the, let us say, now which domain under the
This one,
project
and
management.
also predictive exposure mostly means the occurrence of the secondary risk and residual risk.
Mhm. Okay. You are a project manager to construct a new building in a typhoon-prone area and may impact the schedule and quality. Okay, may. It is not saying that certainly it will impact, but there is a probability. As a project manager, what should you do? Develop the risk management plan and establish a management reserve, establish a contingency reserve, perform quantitative risk analysis and plan the risk response, outsource the project and transfer the risk.
Yes.
Okay. If there is a risk, it is better to transfer it. No, like as a right. Because because establishing a contingency reserve, because if I am establishing a reserve and if the scenario, if the situation comes and I have to use it, it is better that I take an action like whenever this is identified and I like transfer the risk by subcontracting to a vendor, right?
Yes.
Because anyways, if it impacts, then I will have to spend that money later in the project also. So why not make it at the starting of the project or whenever the risk is identified and transfer the risk?
Also,
Correct?
yes, correct. Transfer the risk is going to put the burdens on the vendor.
Yes, and he will be solely responsible for taking all
Exactly.
the risk
Risk.
like
Yes.
at his own cost, right?
Yes, true. True.
Question number 13. You have identified a risk that will negatively affect your security project. Okay. You and your team have decided to use an older encryption technology because of the high risk associated with the new technology. What type of risk strategy are you using? Exploitation, avoidance, transfer, and mitigation. I think here, so the old technology, okay. I think, okay, they are not going to use the new technology because they already know, because there is a high risk associated with the new technology. So they are trying to reduce the probability and impact. So avoidance is the correct option, the
They are
correct
not
answer
going to
for.
reduce the impact. They are going to eliminate the impact.
Yeah, sorry, yes, they are
Yeah.
going to eliminate because the probability and impact, they're going to make both of them zero
Yes.
by going
By
by not
changing the
going with
plan.
the new technology.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Okay, you are in the execution phase of a project to build an automobile. The project team develops a new response for an existing risk that will reduce the schedule by 20 days. What document should the project manager update? Risk breakdown structure, risk management plan, risk register, and the schedule management plan. You are in the execution phase of a project to build an automobile. The
Yes.
project team develops a new response.
Mhm.
Okay, new. Okay. Okay. So the keyword here is that is developing a new response for an existing risk. So which document should be updated? The risk register should be updated. No, sir.
That's right. Response activities will be added in the risk register.
Okay. Bill is the project manager of the construction project. He and the project team have identified a risk event in the project with a high probability of occurrence, and the risk event has high cost impact on the project. Bill discusses the risk event with Virginia, the primary project customer, and she decides that the requirements surrounding the risk event should be removed from the project. The removal of the requirement doesn't affect the project scope, but it can release the project team Okay, from high risk exposure, what risk response has been enacted in this project. So this is also avoidance because
Avoidance.
they are
Yeah, they are removing the requirements, cutting the
because they are
scope.
zero. You are the project manager of a large IT project. During the implementation phase, you sign a contract to rent an additional server from a local company because of the possibility that the main server may fail due to constant local area electrical outages. Okay. As a project manager, what strategy are you using? Okay. During the implementation phase, you sign a contract to rent an additional server. It is not saying that the project, the fully the scope has been, like transferred to a contractor
Right,
because they are
right.
taking an additional measure. So it is a case of a mitigating the risk, right?
Mitigation, right. And
Reducing.
for this question, you can see that the main purpose is to abide by the impact of electrical outages. And if the main electric shutdown is there or electric failure is there, the backup generator or backup equipment will start and it will reduce the impact of not having the electricity. So it is the reducing the impact.
Correct.
Okay.
You have identified a risk that may cause safety concerns for the workers completing the task. You have decided to hire a third party to complete this work because the risk is too great to accept internally, which is transference. Correct,
Transference.
sir?
Correct.
Okay. You identified a risk in your project that is difficult for you to manage. Therefore, you give the responsibility to manage the risk to an outside source. What kind of risk responsibility is? It is transfer.
Transfer.
Okay. One of your hardware vendors sends you an email stating that due to severe bad weather, she will not be able to deliver the networking equipment on time. Okay. You succeed to respond to this risk by leasing the required equipment from a local company until yours arrives. Which of the following statement is true? This is risk mitigation. No, this is risk mitigation straight away. Need to go into the other bit. You are a project manager building a prototype board for an embedded project. Since your organization lacks the required level of application expertise, you outsource the fabrication process for board development to an external vendor. During the course of the project, the vendor informs you of a probable delay of 3 days in the final delivery of the fabricated board. This is an example of okay, because I have hired a vendor to take care of the risk, but now it has given, like now a new risk has arisen because of that, right? So this is a case of a secondary risk only, no, sir?
True, true. Secondary risk.
A project team is working on the risk response strategy by evaluating every risk and is coming up with a suitable response strategies. However, one particular risk with a negative impact cannot be avoided or mitigated. Furthermore, there is no way to transfer the risk by outsourcing or buying insurance. What is the best the team can do about this risk? Okay. So what are the options? It is saying that one particular risk with a negative impact cannot be avoided. It cannot be avoided also. It cannot be mitigated also.
Right.
And it cannot be transferred. So avoidance, mitigation, and transference is out of the question, right?
Yes.
What is the best the team can do? Treat is secondary risk. No. Share the risk by allocating ownership to a third party. No, it cannot be transferred. Revisit the
Right.
risk response strategy. It is already, I think they have to accept that risk. What is the other
Accept the
option?
risk. You see, escalation we cannot do because this is part of the project scope. Okay, within the project manager authority level. So other three, they are not able to do. So the remaining is the acceptance. So we will go for acceptance.
Okay, you come with a lot of project risk management experience. You are particular that risk should be continuously monitored properly. Which will of
Which
the
of the
below
below?
which of the below will you perform as part of such monitoring? Arrange for a meeting to identify risk in the project. So far, no risk have been identified. Prioritizing risk for further analysis or action by assessing and combining their probability and occurrence in impact. Okay. Continuously monitored properly. Okay. Integrate risk response activities with other project execution work. Review any secondary risk which arise due to activities process. Okay. You are particular the risk should be continuously monitored properly. Which of the monitoring? The question is emphasizing on monitoring.
Yes.
No, first option is not correct. We need to identify risk in the project. It is in the monitoring stage. No, at the monitoring stage, what should you do?
Yes.
Prioritize risk for further analysis. No, it is not done at the monitoring risk. No, we are not prioritizing risk. At the monitoring risk, we are just, for me, what we do normally at the monitoring risk, if let us say we need to ensure that whatever risk response plans that we have implemented are working correctly or not. Right? At the monitoring stage,
Yes.
we need.
Yes. Yes.
This is the main purpose of monitoring,
Mm.
and we need to see whether those risks are giving rise to any other risks or not, or why.
True.
Right.
Mm. Right.
So I think option D is more appropriate in this
Correct.
scenario, sir.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Okay. You are a project manager working on a strict deadline. You find a work package on the critical path, which is highly complex and could delay the final delivery of your product. Okay. After consulting your customer, you decide to drop this work package from the project, so it is avoiding, no, sir. It's avoiding.
True.
Correct.
Correct.
So you have been waiting for some material resources from your supplier for your project. In order to avoid delays, you want to implement a contingency plan to buy those resources and keep the project on track. Which of the following includes the criteria that triggers the use of a contingency plan? The risk audit document, risk management plan, OPAS, and your risk register. So which of the following includes the criteria that triggers the use? I think it should be in the risk register only, no,
The
sir?
risk register. True.
Correct.
Correct.
So you have been assigned as a project manager to a software project. Before creating your product, you decided to create a prototype to ensure that it is acceptable to stakeholders. This is an example of risk avoidance, no, risk transference, no, risk mitigation.
Risk mitigation. Yes. True.
Who is ultimately responsible for monitoring a risk that is about to exceed its risk threshold? All project stakeholders, project management office, risk action owner, risk action owner.
Risk action owner. Right. Risk action owner.
What type of reserve should be allocated for the risks that are identified but are unclear? So it is a known unknown. So contingency reserve.
Contingency reserve. Good.
What best describes the job of a risk action owner? Monitor actions to determine their effectiveness. Manage the corresponding risk through all of the subsequent project risk management process, ensuring that the risk response is effective, and for planning additional risk responses. Okay, and planning for additional risk responses if required, ensuring that the agreed upon risk responses are carried out as planned in a timely manner. Okay, so option D is also is a good option, correct? Because what is his primary role? The primary role is to ensure that it is all the risk responses which has been agreed are implemented in a timely manner, right? So, sir, ensuring that the risk response is effective and no, but ensuring that the risk response is effective is not only responsibility of a risk action owner. No, I think it's a key. It's a collective responsibility. If I can, right, not only the sole responsibility of a risk action owner that
No,
in
that can be the responsibility of risk owner rather
the
than
sole
action. Mm.
is the
Can
sole
be
responsibility.
sole responsible. If for the
Oh,
certain risk, he is solely responsible.
okay, and then for planning additional risk responses if required. I think for this he need to take into consideration, like he need to agree with all the stakeholders. So he cannot solely decide that okay, I will be taking that action.
No, risk action owner is actually like a skilled labor who is executing the response activities. And
Like
risk,
a planning manager or a quality manager, he can be a risk action
no,
owner,
no,
right?
no. They can be risk owner, but
Ah,
the
sorry.
table puller and masons, they can be risk action owner.
Mhm. Okay. What best? But the question is asking like this is also a good option, but what best describes? I think D is more appropriate, no, sir, because
D is
he
the
is.
only D is the only right answer.
Mhm.
Because other options they are for risk owner, not risk
Uh-huh,
action owner. Risk
correct.
action owner is the person who
Timely manner.
carries out. Yes, Nadeem bhai?
Timely manner, sir.
Timely
Keyword.
manner. Yeah, timely manner is also keyword. But the other keyword is carried out as planned. He is the person who carries out, who executes the response, who takes the action on the response activities.
So what you are saying that, okay, so if I go by the definition of a risk action owner, he is the execution, he is doing the execution.
Yes,
So if he is doing the execution, so what describes his role that he has to implement what has been agreed and
yes,
he has to do it in a timely manner. The other responsibilities related to understanding whether this is effective or not, or planning is not his responsibility, right? It
yeah,
is the responsibility of a risk owner, not an action owner.
that's right. That's right. 29.
You are a project manager who is in charge of an important project for your company. Within the project, you and the project team have identified a risk event that could have a financial impact on the project of 450,000 USD. The risk event has a 70% chance of occurring in the project. Okay. The project identifies a solution that will reduce the probability of the risk event to 10%. Okay. But it will cost $260,000 to implement. Management agrees that with the solution and ask you to include the risk response in the project plan. What risk response is this? So by implementing the plan, risk response plan, the probability is reduced, right, sir? From
Right, right.
70%.
Mm.
So he is trying to mitigate. The
Mm.
probability is reducing is the mitigation.
That's right.
This is transference? No, this is mitigation, I believe.
Yes. The last question for today's session. The remaining we will do tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Bill is the project manager of the JKH project. He and the project team have identified a risk event in the project with the high probability of occurrence, and the risk event has a high cost impact on the project. Bill discusses the risk event with Virginia, the primary project customer, and she decides that the requirements surrounding the risk event should be removed from the project. The removal of the requirement doesn't affect the project scope, but it can release the project from a high. This is avoiding, no, sir, because
Yeah,
I think.
that's right. That's a repeated question. Okay, thank you
Yes.
very much. See you tomorrow with the remaining questions. Until tomorrow, take care. Goodbye. Allah Hafiz. Fi amanillah.